Our next speaker is Nancy Lublin. She is the CEO of DoSomething.org. And she was able to turn this hopeful organization into one of the world's most influential non-for-profit volunteer groups. And she did this by her deep understanding of teenagers, trends, and technology. And DoSomething is now the 5th largest charity on Twitter with over 500,000 followers. Nancy Lublin.
I had lunch with that family, and they're going to adopt me. They just don't know it yet. I want to start by thanking the Raps for having me and thanking this Houston community because I feel a connection to you, even though I haven't been to Houston in 15 years. There's a really wonderful Dress for Success chapter here that was founded by Nancy Levicki. Where is Nancy Levicki? Is she here somewhere? Can you stand up, please? And so many of you have supported Dress for Success. I'm glad to see no women in the audience are naked, but apparently so many of you have given your clothes and your time and your energy to Dress for Success, and as the founder of Dress for Success, I'm grateful to you. But I'm not here today to talk about Dress for Success. I'm here today to talk about my love of texting. How many of you have teenagers? Okay, I'm about to make you feel good about paying those cell phone bills. Texting. I actually think texting could save lives. The average teenager sends over 4,000 text messages a month. Some of you cringe when you hear that, and some of you cringe doubly because your kid sends a lot more than that. I am the CEO and chief old person, that is my title, of DoSomething.org, which is the largest organization for teenagers and social change. And we run campaigns. We'll run about 24 campaigns this year alone. A campaign is something that a young person can do that doesn't require money, an adult, or a car. For example, food pantries are low on food, and we call them and say, "Do you really need soup? Everybody collects soup for you." And they say, "No, we need protein, non-perishable protein." That's peanut butter. So we do a huge campaign called the Peanut Butter and Jam Slam. And the whole thing is, will kids collect more crunchy or smooth peanut butter? And that's how we make it fun. Are you team crunchy or team smooth? And we will send out text messages in order to get kids to participate in this campaign. And to just give you an idea of the kind of scale I'm talking about, we collected 250,000 jars of peanut butter in a month. These are huge campaigns. Really? You're not going to clap for that? That was kind of big. So what's great about texting is the open rate. You open every text message you get. And even though your kids sometimes don't respond to you, I promise they saw that text about their homework or coming home for dinner. Texting has a 97% open rate. It's huge. Texting is fast. 83% of all text messages are returned within 14 minutes. Texting actually is a terrific way to reach vulnerable populations. As a charity, we weren't really established to help more kids in Beverly Hills do community service. Our whole thing is to be a scale play and help more everyday kids do more community service. So our stickiest markets are actually near here: San Antonio, El Paso, and North Miami Beach. Hispanic. I didn't believe our data scientist when he brought me that the first time. I said, "Cut the data another way." And he came back and said, "Okay, our stickiest users are Juan, Miguel, and Maria." I believed him. The other thing that's great about text messaging is that the yield to engagement is higher. It's 10 to 30 times more effective than sending an email. But I'm not really here today to brag about DoSomething and how great DoSomething is. I want to talk to you about a strange side effect of all of this texting, and something that we just didn't predict would happen. So we'll text about 1.4 million kids a week, and all of that good stuff happens that I just described. And starting about 2 years ago, we noticed that we started getting text messages back from kids. A couple dozen messages back every week, and they had nothing to do with peanut butter or food pantries or the campaign that we were sending out that week. They were things like, "The kids are really mean to me at school, I don't want to go tomorrow." Or, "I was cutting, my parents found out, I stopped, but I just started again an hour ago." These are real messages. And the worst message we ever got, and this is word for word what the text message said: "He won't stop raping me. It's my dad. He told me not to tell anyone. Are you there?" And I was horrified. And I think the part of the message that actually got to me most was the "are you there?" That somehow reaching out to us would make sense. We are not experts in this space. She clearly had nowhere else to turn, and she wanted help. In the first quarter of this year alone, 13,000 people texted 911. And nothing happened, because you can't text a 3-digit code in the United States. It just goes into the ether. Think about that, 13,000 people who were in some kind of crisis. I don't know, no one knows what. Some kind of crisis with just no answer. Not a, sorry, we're busy, or this doesn't work, you can't text 911. It just goes into the ether. And so, in honor of that girl, and that very day that we got the text message, I looked at my team and I said, we need to build something. And so we had the idea for crisis text line. It would be kind of like 911, where you could text in with any kind of a problem, and we would connect you with counselors 24/7. What's great about this, and this was my hunch was that it's private, right? Nobody hears you talking on the phone. You could be sitting at a lunch table being bullied in that moment. And you're not going to call 911 because the other kids would hear you, but you might text and say, like, this is awful, what do I do? So-and-so just said this to me. You know, when you go into a bathroom stall, if you call, the kid in the stall next to you might hear you, but if you're texting, it's actually really private. So the hunch was that maybe it would be better because it would be private. The other hunch was that maybe kids would really tell us what was going on, because on the phone you get hyperventilating, crying, you get the word "like" every 3 words. It can sometimes be hard to just understand a fact pattern or what's going on with a kid, but by text, when you say, "Are you coming home?" the kid will say, "Yes, 6 p.m." You know, it's very clear, objective information. And the other thing that we thought about counseling by text was that we could do long-term engagement. Because you grab their mobile numbers, and then we could go back out to them in a few days saying, "Are you okay? Did you go to your principal like we suggested? You know, are you taking your medication like we suggested?" So we built it, and it launched on August 1st. And this is the first public forum where I'm sharing the early results. We thought that we would hit 1,000 users in mid-November. We just turned it on very quietly, actually, and only in Chicago and El Paso. You can text it from anywhere in the United States. The number is 741-741, but we launched with a little bit like stickers on some bathrooms in Chicago and El Paso. So we thought 1,000 users in November. We crossed 3,000 users early last week. But the part that's more exciting is that we've had already more than 100 active rescues. An active rescue is when there's a threat of imminent harm and we need to send police or EMTs to the home. That's at a rate of about 3%, and that is 2x higher than other hotlines and phone lines. That kids are telling us things quickly and objectively, and that means we've saved over 100 lives. And I brought my iPad out here because I wanted to read to you an email that literally came to me yesterday. Actually, it was a text, obviously, but it was an email from the team that said, we want to share this to you. A kid texted in saying, "In September, I sent you guys messages. I don't know if you remember." Obviously, the word "you" is just the letter U. "I don't know if you remember. I was getting bullied and I took some pills. I attempted suicide. I was taken to the hospital. Afterwards, I was diagnosed with the depression, so I want to thank you guys because you guys saved my life." I do remember that thread. We had been texting with him for about an hour and a half. He said that there were pills on the desk. We said, how about you put them in the drawer while we text back and forth? We did get his address. We did send police and EMTs. And after we sent police and EMTs, a couple of text messages later, he did say, "I'm going to take the pills." We didn't hear from him for 20 minutes. Then the parent texted us from that same phone saying, "Hey, this is the parent. We had no idea. You just saved our son's life. Thank you." And then this from the son himself only yesterday. It's pretty powerful. It feels pretty good. Saving lives, I've got to admit, it's pretty awesome, and all of our hunches have borne out. But I never imagined crisis text line actually as a crisis text line. That's not really what the big idea here is. The big idea is the data. So the last time a comprehensive mental health study was done in the United States on young people was 1997. right? Like young people's lives have changed just a little bit in the United States since then, but we haven't had, and these are these longitudinal studies, these comprehensive studies, they take years, and there isn't a study relating bullying and eating disorders. I mean, most of these things, there's no understanding of crossover, there's no real-time data. So we have partnered with the MIT Media Lab, and we're doing auto-tagging of keywords. So keywords that come in, we're just tagging in real time. And in Q1, we will have a live real-time map of crises in America. You'll be able to look up any zip code, any time of day, and any issue, and see what's going on. So you could imagine that police departments might know when crystal meth has hit a certain zip code, and they need more presence on the streets. Or a time of day when they need more presence on the streets just in general. A school board might notice that, wow, they changed a food vendor and now they have eating disorder texts every Thursday because maybe that's tater tot day. Or that they need more guidance counselors in the month of February. And instead of running evaluations and paying for separate studies, all of this will be free in real time. Journalists, instead of just using anecdotes on these stories, will now have data at their fingertips. Academics will be able to pull this and run whatever kinds of studies they want. And politicians will no longer be able to just fight over their personal philosophies and beliefs and experiences. They'll have to tango with real-time data and real results. It'll all be under what's called a Creative Commons license, which means no one will be able to use it for commercial use, but everybody will have access to it. And there'll be no personally identifiable information, so most importantly, kids will be safe. It's a big disruptive idea. What I want to share, because I think today, and I'm almost at the end of the day, you have superstar boy genius after me. But you know, I've been in, which is a great way to end the day. I've been in the green room all day listening to talks, and so many have been about technology. Some of them have been scary talks, let's admit, scary use of technology. But a lot of talk about technology and behavior use and patterns. And then you also had Dan Pallotta's talk on social change and philanthropy. And I think what I want to do in my last few minutes is be personal with you and share with you how freaking difficult it has been to launch Crisis Text Line, which is a shock. So I'm kind of a safe bet, right? I did Dress for Success. That worked out okay. I run the largest organization for young people in America. It's doing really well. And this idea for Crisis Text Line wasn't really an idea. We were kind of triaging something already in-house that was happening. It was basically a pilot. And now you can see in the first couple of months of its usage that it's going really well. And still, it was really, really hard to get this started. And there are three possibilities as to why this was really hard. That it was my fault, that I'm just really bad at this, which is possible. That it's the sector's fault, some of the stuff Dan was talking about, and that the sector's really just, you know, not awesome. And that it's kind of like the man's fault, that it's the money's fault. So I'm going to go through each of those and talk about how this works. So it's possible that it's my fault. Being an entrepreneur when you're my age, and I start with a 4 now, it's harder. I mean, I have kids. I actually like them. I like spending time with them. And it can really be hard to do a startup sort of later in life. And I don't think that's a secret to anyone here. We like having balance. I'm not really great at all-nighters anymore. I used to be great at taking a red eye and going right into work after a Frappuccino, maybe. And now I need to sleep. And I've gotten used to having an assistant who can help me manage things. So going back into the startup, maybe I'm not good at this. And I am totally willing to take that on, that it's hard to go back to being scrappy after you've been successful. Is anybody nodding their head? Nobody is nodding your head. I'm glad you are all finding it so easy to be successful all the time. The second thing is that it's the sector's fault, because the other kind of ugly story that Dan didn't talk about but could have, the other dirty laundry that most of us know but we don't really talk about much, so let's just put it out there in the open, is that not-for-profits are often not very nice to each other. And the phone hotlines are not wild about this crisis text line. That it's a little threatening to have something new on the block. And they've been hearing about how kids behave differently, and we're saying to them, look, this is a new behavior, and you don't really want to be told that something you're doing is going the way of, the Polaroid camera. You guys are not finding me funny, huh? So it's definitely a challenge, and it's been a challenge to get organizations to collaborate in the not-for-profit space. Our hope is that to basically we outsource to all these call centers for crisis text line, and we want to just be able to outsource, and we've built a white label so we can outsource to anybody. So all these different issues, the right experts can handle the right problems. But we need them all to work within the same system, and a whole bunch of them just want to go create their own things, which of course will also hurt the data, because data requires volume, velocity, and variety. So if we fragment the system, we're going to fragment the data. But if we fragment the systems, these people can go get their own funding, right? I've created my own crisis text line, each of them likes to say. So it's very hard to kind of wrangle all of the sheep. I need a sheepdog. It's very difficult to get all of the not-for-profits to combine and work together. And the last problem is the funding. The funding is really hard. It's really hard to raise money for something new, because even these foundations that support Do Something or have supported me for years in other endeavors, when you bring them something new, say, you don't quite fit any of our buckets. Well, that's because it's new. New things don't fit buckets. That's the whole point of new. So it was really, really challenging. Although I am proud to say that I've now raised $4 million to launch Crisis Text Line. And I want to give credit where credit's due. It's to a struggling, but I'm rooting for them, Texas company helped us raise a chunk of it. JCPenney gave us the month of March in stores to round up at the registers, and customers were good to Crisis Text Line, and we raised $1.4 million just that way. So please go buy all your socks and underwear at JCPenney this weekend. I'm rooting for them. So it's really been a challenge. So I just want to conclude and go to Q&A with the following thought. This is really exciting, and it is really disruptive, and the early data is all pointing to the fact that they're going to use this more quickly and more clearly than we even expected. Don't make it hard for people like me to start new things. Thanks.
Hi, Nancy. So Crisis Text Line grew out of your understanding and your deep experience with teenagers, and you saw this opportunity with the technology. What do you think motivates teens nowadays, and is it different than in previous generations? Has the technology changed their cynicism, their altruism? What's your take on it?
So people themselves and what motivates us and what we care about don't change much over time. There are a couple of things that are different, though, with this generation. One is the technology, right? So text messaging didn't exist when I was younger. So, you know, we had different things, but sort of every generation has their things. So this generation's One Direction was my generation's New Kids, was some of your generation's Elvis's Pelvis, right? Like, we've all had something throughout the generations. The second thing that is different is their pain points are different. My generation, we wanted to fit in, and that was what all those pop culture Molly Ringwald movies were about, right? Was like fitting in at school, Breakfast Club, all those things. And this generation has lived through a visible recession. They understand when their parents are out of work or struggling. This generation's crisis and tension and pain point is paying for college. It's not even getting into college. They're nervous about paying for college, and they're nervous about things like jobs. They think about money more than I ever did, and most of the people in this room ever did. It's a different day and age.
Great. Thank you so much for your work, Nancy.